All right. Hello and officially welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about why learning to be alone is one of the best things we will ever do for our relationships. Now, before we get started, relationships, I believe, connection to community, connection to love and support and to other people. I do not believe that this is a want. I believe that in real reality, connection to other human beings is a legitimate need, okay? I do not believe that it is healthy for us to be totally isolated or to expect ourselves to be totally independent or to get to a place where we never need anyone or want a relationship or want many relationships, loving relationships. And that is not the point of this talk. And that is not the point of the self-love path. And I think that even a lot of us may have been raised in ways where we were convinced that any amount of needing someone else, any amount of wanting help, wanting support, wanting to be seen, wanting to be validated, wanting to just spend time with others so that we're not alone was being needy or being, unnecessarily asking for things that went above and beyond what we should be asking for. And I think I can speak from personal experience that I learned that needing others or wanting others was something wrong with me and that there was a flaw in that and that I was supposed to get to a place in my life where I was able to be fully independent and never need or want anything from anyone ever again. And that was deeply unhealthy. Okay. And for a really long time, I was very afraid and resistant to asking for help and asking for support. And again, that is not a healthy thing. And I was in a place where I felt like even if I was asking for support and help on some level, that was something I was doing as a temporary means to try to get to a place where I could eventually be perfect and all put together and never need anyone ever again. And that was some ultimate goal, that I was supposed to fix myself enough that I never had a meltdown, that I never had a want or a need for anyone to be there for me, to be kind to me, or like I say, to even just spend time with me, not even in helping me with something, not even something is wrong, just being with somebody. And learning that was not a flaw and that that's a human need and that's a normal, natural thing. And incorporating that into my self-love work was huge. So I really want to say that at the beginning of this video. This is not a video where I am going to try to convince you that being independent is the ultimate goal of the self-love path and that getting all of your needs met all on your own is something that we could even arrive at and healthfully do. Right? There are some times and some places and some situations where we aren't going to have that external support, where the external support that we want or that we need is not going to be available, where learning to be our own resource is something we're going to have to do because of unhealthy, unsustainable, unideal circumstances. Okay, so we're working with real reality with this self-love path always. So understanding that there are going to be, in probably everyone's life, times and places where we don't have access to the support that would be ideal. And so learning how to support ourselves in those times is incredibly beneficial. But it's not to say that we should be okay with that or that we need to get to a place where we never want anything more than that. Okay? It's being practical. We want to learn to support ourselves the best we can so that if we are ever in those unideal situations, we can at least be meeting our needs on some level, because that's better than not being able to do it at all. We want to be able to get to a place where we can healthfully identify what our own needs are and what our wants are and what feels good for us, and we can know how to get those needs met on our own, but also we can be aware of those things so that we know how to consciously ask for them in consensual relationships with other adults, instead of feeling like we need other people to read our minds or to understand us on a level we don't understand ourselves, or placing that kind of responsibility on others to meet our needs for us when we can't do it ourselves. That is the point of the self-love path. We want to be able to support ourselves and to be on our own side and to be our own safe place, regardless of what's going on around us, because obviously that is a good thing. But we're not doing it with the hopes of getting to a place where we never want or never need anything from anyone else ever again. It's a balance, okay? And that's what we're going to talk about in the video. So just to know that before we start, we're not trying to get to a place where we are fully independent and we never want or need anything from anyone else ever again, because that is not reality, that is not healthy, that is not something that we should be striving for. We are humans who thrive in healthy connection, and that is always going to be how it is. And learning to be alone and learning to be okay being alone and learning to support ourselves actually helps to serve that end. It helps us to be able to create healthy connection with others. It's not something that is instead of connection with others. These two things work together. Okay, so the self-love path is not about becoming completely independent. It's about strengthening our inner resource so that when we don't have access to others, we can be okay. And it's about strengthening our inner resource and our inner awareness so that we can be healthier in relationships. It's all of that, okay? So don't get confused right off the bat and think that I'm saying you need to get to a place where you never want or need a relationship ever again, and the self-love path is going to get you there, because that is not reality, and that is not true, and that is not a healthy goal to have. Okay. Second thing is I want to thank the sponsors of today's video, and they are, number one, the people who are in the Aaliyah Mystery School. I am so grateful for every person who has invested their time and their energy and their money in the mystery school that I have created, because that financial support goes towards, all the back end costs of running a business. So all the website upkeep, all the paying my designer and all of these things, so that I can do this work and be present. And it also really helps me to be able to do free content for the people who can't afford anything. And so I really just want to put that out there, that I am so grateful for every person who has invested their money in anything that I have ever created and anything that I put out there, especially the mystery school, because, like I say, it really gives me the freedom to be able to do things like this. And hopefully my free content, my videos and my blogs and all that stuff are not just, clickbait half stuff to get you to sign up for the paid thing. It means that I can put out high quality things for free for the people who can't afford it. So I really am just so grateful. And I just want to say that, the mystery school is still operational. It's still being updated every week. There's new content every week. We are starting our 5th curriculum. So right now there's already 4 curriculums in there, 3 of which are full year curriculums. Like if you did a lesson a week kind of thing, it would take you about 3.5, maybe 4 years to get through what's already in there. And it's video work, there's written work, there's guided meditations, there's exclusive videos, there's written journaling work, there's physical body-based exercises. Hopefully there's something for every learning style in there. And it was me doing my very best to lay out a map of the territory of the self-love path and how we can learn to connect to our bodies, our emotions, our minds, how we can work through our past. There's lots of resources in there of other information other than my own. I really jam-packed this thing with as much resource and information and depth and breadth as possible. So that is what's going on in the Mystery School, and I just want to thank everyone who's in there for sponsoring this video. Second thing, the second sponsors of the second sponsor of this video are the people who work with me one-on-one, because again, that exchange of time and energy and financial support also goes into supporting me so that I can do more free stuff. So everyone who works with me one-on-one, you guys are the reason that I can offer a sliding scale, and you guys are, I just really obviously admire everyone that I work with, and I think that you're all just completely amazing human beings, and thank you for that. And the third sponsor is my husband, Marcus, of course, for doing the work so that I can, again, invest a lot of my time and a lot of my energy in free content and in low price point stuff and in offering services at a sliding scale so I don't have to turn people away. Thank you for that. So if you want to support my sponsor, Marcus, you can click the heart button or the like button and maybe leave a comment, and you'll get 100% off, making Marcus feel good about supporting this work. So thank you for all of that. Just wanted to put that out there. Hopefully I did a good influencer spiel. All right, so now, why learning to be alone is one of the best things you will ever do for your relationships. This is one of those amazing, awesome paradoxes that we learn about on the self-love path. So remembering that in our world today, we are really used to black and white thinking, all or nothing thinking, either or thinking. And so I know that for a lot of people, when you start on this self-love path and get into the self-love work, it can feel like the message is you need to learn to love yourself so fully and so much that you never need or want anyone ever again. That you are supposed to get to a place where you can meet all of your own needs, where you can be completely aware of your own self, where you never have a want or a need for connection or a relationship or anything like that ever again. You become completely independent, and that's what self-love is. That you get to a place where you never care what anyone ever thinks about you ever again. You don't care what people say about you. You don't care about how you look anymore because you feel like you can just be comfortable, and that's what self-love is. And so again, I want to really strongly iterate that that is not the goal. The goal of this is not complete independence where we never want or need anyone ever again. That is not what self-love is about. Rather, learning to be okay on our own. Learning to be okay when we are not able to access the external love and the external support that we would want or that we would need. Number one is a part of being able to find actual health in our relationships. Because so often when we are in a place where we feel like when we are alone or when other people aren't around or when we don't have the external love and validation of someone else, that in that situation, there's no one in here, there's no one home, we feel like we're completely cut off from love, we're completely separated from what we want and what we need and what would be important for us, we will get into a situation where we will be willing to tolerate and put up with unhealthy relationship dynamics to keep people around so that we don't feel like we ever have to be alone, right? Where we feel like being alone is worse than being in a shitty relationship or being in a toxic relationship. And that is something that's actually pretty common in our culture and in our world, not because there's something wrong with us, not because we are just choosing to be in shitty relationships and we're weak and we're flawed and we need to fix ourselves. That is not why that is happening. Okay? Most of us were never raised, we were never taught how to have healthy self-esteem, healthy self-respect, and a healthy level of knowing how to be our own safe place and knowing how to be on our own and knowing how to support ourselves in a healthy, balanced way. And this is what leads to a lot of our codependent behaviors. This is what leads to us being willing to put up with relationship dynamics that are not healthy. Because again, we are so afraid of being alone because we feel like being alone means literally nothing. So it's better to be in a relationship that's really painful or toxic or maybe needs some different boundaries that hurt us than it is to be alone because we feel like at least we're getting something in the relationship when we have nothing when we're on our own. You see? So the more we are able to learn how to be on our own side, the more we are able to learn how to be kind and compassionate with ourselves, the more we are able to learn how to show up for our own emotional needs. So like, again, I want to be a little bit more specific about what I'm talking about, okay? So that this isn't just hypothetical, but rather like when we can first thing, when we can learn how to be alone in our own presence and be comfortable. That's the first thing. Most of us have never learned how to be in our own presence, even like without needing a distraction, without needing to feel like we're being constantly busy and constantly doing things, to be able to like just sit with ourselves. This is something that most of us are going to have to work to develop, right? Because again, when we are alone and when there's nothing else going on, for a lot of us, that's when our uncomfortable, unprocessed emotions and experiences and thoughts and feelings come up. Especially if, again, we have not done much introspection work in our lives and we haven't learned how to take the time to process things and to feel through things and to be with our emotions and learning how to witness them, how to move through them, how to support ourselves when we're feeling big feelings, how to process where those big feelings are coming from and what they mean and why we're feeling them. When we can learn how to do that, when we can learn to say, okay, I'm going to be here with me. And when stuff comes up, I have tools that I know how to use to help me work through and process the things that come up when life slows down and there's not a lot going on and I'm by myself. That is a very important skill to develop if we want to have truly healthy relationships. Now again, this is not to say that we should be able to process and work through everything we feel and everything that's going on our own. No one's saying that. I truly believe, right? This is why we have friends to talk things out with. This is why we have things like the mystery school or working with a counselor or a therapist or a coach one-on-one. Because sometimes we absolutely need support in working through our stuff. But even then, right, when we can come to a coaching session or a therapy session or to a situation with our friends where we're going to talk about stuff and we already have some pre-awareness and some pre-knowledge of what we're feeling and why it's stuck and why it's hard. And so we're not just like kind of like vomiting everything that's going on with us on people in a completely unprocessed way, but we can show up for support in a way where it's a little bit more organized and collected so that support can be more direct. That's a really healthy thing. Yeah? So number one tool and resource is learning how to be with our uncomfortable emotions, with our uncomfortable feelings, with our uncomfortable thoughts, without needing someone else to work it through with from start to finish, like literally feeling like we can't do that unless we have someone to help us, we don't want to be in that situation. We want to be in a situation where we know that at least to a degree, we can feel our own emotions and we can work through them so that we are not fully dependent on someone validating us and seeing us and being able to understand us, because that's not always available. And then also, so that when we do get that love and that support and that validation and that being seen by others, it can actually be more productive and it can be more effective and it can be safer for both people, you and the person who's supporting you or the people who are supporting you, because you're not coming with completely unprocessed, unlooked at kind of big mess of stuff. You're coming with a little bit more able to be self-responsible, because again, right, like there are going to be times and places where we're super triggered and we're over it and we come to someone in a complete mess, and that's okay. But we don't want to be doing that all the time, right? We don't want to be dumping that all over our friends all the time. We don't want to be dumping that all over our partners all the time. That's not really a healthy relationship dynamic. You see what I'm saying? When we get to that place where we need someone to be able to even start processing, rather than being able to say like, hey, right, I have this thing that's going on with me and I know it's stuck in there. I know it's my feeling of sadness. I know that there's this deep uncomfortable feeling in my gut. I know that there's some discomfort or some urgency or some icky feeling. And can you help me talk it out? Versus, fix me, help me, change me. Everything's a mess in my life and I don't know what's wrong with me, and can you figure it out for me? Right? These are two very different things. And we want to be able to come to support, to come to help, to come to our friends, to come to our counselors and therapists, especially our friends and especially our family, like the people who are not our therapists and the people who are not responsible for us. We want to be able to come to them in a way where we're not needing them to be our therapist, where we're not needing them to be able to fix us, right? We can go for that catharsis of being heard and being seen. We can go for like, what would you do in this situation? Or can we just talk this out and can you just give me space to vent? That's totally healthy. But we're not showing up being like, please fix me, please save me, please do this for me, because I can't do it for myself. There's that line, right? And again, just bottom line, it is very beneficial to be able to be in your own presence, to be able to feel your uncomfortable emotions, and to not feel like you're going to drown in them. Because again, you've learned how to witness them. You've learned how to be with your emotions, see them, witness them as something that are passing through, that are not a part of your experience forever. You've learned how to connect with your body and connect with your physicality in a way that helps you process your emotions. You've learned how to sort through your thoughts, at least to a degree, so that you can identify, okay, wait, what is actually even bothering me and why is it bothering me? And what are some things that even I can start to brainstorm that might be helpful and supportive for me? And biggest thing, that you know how to validate yourself, right? That you know how to move through the shame and the guilt that tell you that you shouldn't be feeling this way, or that there's something wrong with you, or that you're broken, or that the reason you feel how you feel is because you're failing or you suck on some level, right? You're not pretty enough. You're not successful enough. You're not this enough. We all have that scapegoat that we go to, that we blame all of our negative feelings on. If I could just fix my career, if I could just fix my relationship, if I could just fix my body, everything would be better. And we're able to move past that to understand what we're really thinking and really feeling and what's really going on for us and what we really want and what we really need. Again, this means that we can feel validated and seen and heard even if there's no one around in our world who can do that for us. And that's very important, because there isn't always going to be someone who's going to be able to see you, who's going to be able to validate you. Sometimes you're going to come to people with how you're feeling and what you're experiencing, and they are going to tell you that you're just holding a grudge and you need to get over it, or that you're weak, or that you're lazy, or that there's something wrong with you, or whatever. And they're not going to be able to hold that space for you. And we don't want to be in a situation where we can't do it for ourselves, other people can't do it for us, and so we just feel worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. There's so much benefit to learning to be able to be with our own emotions and to validate our own experience, whether or not anyone else is around or anyone else can, because that is not always going to be available. And we don't want to be in a situation where if someone else isn't validating us and if someone else can't support us in feeling like we are justified, at least in feeling how we feel, so that we can eventually get to, where's my responsibility in this? Where's my power? How can I fix this? Whatever. Understanding that we have to go through that emotional place of being upset first and just being validated in our upset before we're told, you need to take responsibility, you need to do something about this, here's your role in it. We need to be validated. This is just a human need. We need to be able to feel our emotions without them overwhelming us and without going into shame, blame, and guilt about it. And other people are not always going to be able to facilitate that. So we need to be able to facilitate that in ourselves for healthy emotional expression and healthy emotional processing. We need to be able to do that so that we can show up to asking for support from others without being in a state where we need others to fix us, where we are putting other people in the position of being our coach or our therapist instead of a safe place to bounce ideas off of and to be validated and to know that, like, they know that you know that you're going to figure it out. They know that you just need to be seen and validated and heard and loved and maybe to talk it through or whatever, but that they're not feeling like, oh, now I'm like responsible for you. You see? This is part of what being healthy is. Second thing, when you can learn to identify your own wants and your own needs, why you are feeling how you're feeling, what that feeling is letting you know that you want or that you need that you don't have access to right now, or that you're whatever. Learning to be able to say, okay, right? Like, I don't feel good, I feel unsettled, I feel whatever it is. And I would really like this. I would really like that. Number one, again, that gives us so much freedom to be able to say, okay, I don't necessarily need someone else to understand me or to predict me or to be able to help me understand what I want or what I need without me having to do that work, right? Because remember that we were all in a situation in our childhoods where we had that temporary codependent relationship with our caregivers, where we learned that getting our needs met was about someone else understanding us, someone else interpreting our cries, interpreting our movements, interpreting our behavior to understand what it was that we wanted or that we needed, and for them to provide it for us. Because that was the healthy, reasonable, realistic dynamic of a child and a parent, right? Because a child cannot identify their own needs. A child cannot figure out how to get their own needs met. A child only knows to express something and to have someone else love them enough to understand them, to do that labor, to understand them, and then to do the labor to meet their need. And many of us never learned how to get past that kind of dynamic. We weren't explicitly taught how to start to say, okay, it's not mom and dad's job anymore, or caregiver's job, whoever raised you, to be able to predict and understand all of your needs anymore. That as you become an adult, the new goal is for you to start to be able to at least understand your own wants and needs, so that the ones that you can get met on your own, you can get met on your own, which just means you're free, right? When you're not dependent on others in certain ways, it gives you a sense of autonomy, an experience of autonomy that is very liberating and very healthy. And then the second thing is it makes it so that you can healthfully ask in a consensual way for other adults to meet your needs who are no longer your caregivers, right? Because the healthy dynamic that we have with every adult relationship we're ever going to be in is not the same as what was a healthy dynamic between us and our caregivers. When we expect our partners or our friends or anyone else in our life to be able to predict our needs and understand what we want and what we need without us having to understand that on our own, without us having to ask for that directly, without us having to ask for consent of like, is this even something you feel comfortable giving me or providing for me? When we don't have that, we are going to be in unhealthy relationship dynamics. When we are demanding that other people understand us and meet our needs without verbal communication and consent, that is an unhealthy dynamic. And remember, most of us never learn to transition from express discomfort or express want or express need in a cry or whatever and get our needs met into, okay, I know what I want, I can identify it, and I can ask for it, or I can do it myself. We learned instead, if I become pleasing to others, I need to learn how to be pleasing. I need to learn how to be what other people want me to be. I need to learn how to be approved of by others. Because the more I'm loved and approved of by others, the more likely it is that they're going to understand what I want and what I need and meet my needs for me. Right? That is the root of the codependency that most of us are in. We feel like we have to be liked all the time. We feel like we have to figure out what those around us want us to be and what they expect and what they demand and what they desire. And again, a lot of this is unspoken, and we're just like picking up on signs and reading things and like, okay, that seemed to make them upset, or this made them upset, or right? And so both people are trying to navigate getting their needs met from the other person by trying to manipulate them, essentially, unconsciously. We're not choosing this. We're not being manipulative. We're literally just taking a childhood strategy and applying it to an adult relationship where we think, I need to be pleasing, I need to figure out how to be approved of by the people around me, and that's how I find safety, and that's how I get my needs met. So you can see how that would lead to unhealthy relationship dynamics, where we're willing to put up with things that are not healthy because we feel like, yeah, but I need them to love me, and I need them to see me, and I need them to validate me because they meet this, and this need for me when that happens, or I'm hoping that they will, right? We are in a place where we feel like, well, I can't identify what I want. I can't meet my own needs. I don't know what it is. I am dependent on them because that's the dynamic we learned. I'm dependent on my caregivers. Now I'm dependent on the people around me. And when I don't get their love and I don't get their approval, I feel that deep sense of like, well, then I'm not going to be okay. Because that was the programming and the conditioning we got in our childhoods. Right? The programming and the conditioning we got in our childhoods and that temporary codependent relationship was, if I'm not loved and I'm not approved of, if I don't have that secure connection and that secure attachment to my caregivers, and I can't feel like I can depend on them to meet my needs, even when I'm a mess, even when I'm not able to do it myself, even when I'm all of these things. We learn, okay, what do I need to do and what do I need to be so that they will love me, so that they will then meet my needs. And then we take that into our adult relationships. And so rather than being two adults or three adults or however many who can all say, okay, I'm responsible for understanding what I want and what I need. And then I'm responsible for vocalizing that and asking for it. And also, I'm responsible for being able to be the kind of person who can accept and tolerate that not everyone is going to like me. Not everyone is going to approve of me. And that doesn't mean that my safety is not secure. Instead of that, we go into these adult dynamics where everyone's just trying to be approved of by everyone. Everyone's pretending to be something that they aren't. Everyone's putting on an act. Everyone's doing all these things for everyone else in the hopes that that will mean that the people we're performing for will see us and understand us and love us enough to figure out what we want and what we need and provide those needs for us, right? And we're trying to do the same for them. We're trying to predict their needs. We're trying to predict what they want. We're trying to get out ahead of their emotions and to be the perfect partner and the perfect friend, because we're so afraid that if we don't live up to their expectation, they will abandon us and then we aren't safe. And it's this whole mess that when we can learn to identify our own wants and our own needs, we can then start to learn how to step out of that dynamic of codependency. I'm going to try and do and be what you want me to be. I'm going to try and live up to your expectation. I'm going to run myself ragged, trying to be what you want me to be, and you're going to do the same for me, or you're going to be the kind of person that feels like you need to manipulate, or otherwise, right, like you need to fix or change or coerce other people into being and doing what you want them to be and do, because you don't feel, again, safe enough to ask for your needs, or you don't feel aware of what your needs actually are. So you feel like you have to manipulate the people around you in order to get your needs met. Instead of being in that healthy dynamic where we can vocally express what we want and what we need in a healthy, consensual way, we end up codependent and manipulative, right? We're not choosing it. It's not because we're bad and we're weak and we just want terrible relationships and we don't have enough self-love, whatever. Right? It's because we never learned how to healthfully identify what we want and what we need. And we never learned how to meet our own needs on our own so that we don't feel so dependent on the love and approval of other people as that middleman, hoping that if they love and approve of us, they will then understand us in ways we don't even understand ourselves. And they will meet our needs and they will predict us and they will satisfy us and keep us safe when we can't do that for ourselves. The more we learn to be able to identify our own wants and our own needs, at least to the point where we can verbally ask for what we want. So again, it's not always about being able to meet our own needs. It's not always that we're going to be able to do it on our own. But to be able to say, hey, is this something you can do for me? Instead of like, okay, I'm going to do all the cooking and all the cleaning and all the laundry and all the things for my spouse in the hopes that he will then meet my emotional needs by talking to me for an hour at night because that's what I need for connection. Do you see what I'm saying? And then being very disappointed when husband comes home or a partner comes home or partners come home and they put on their headphones and don't talk to us for the whole night. And we think, well, I did all this for you. Why aren't you doing this for me? And they come back and be like, well, hey, number one, I never even asked for you to do all those things. And number two, I had no idea that you were doing it so that I would do this thing for you. I didn't even know you wanted that. so much of the time we get in these conflicts of feeling like we're not getting our needs met because we never actually expressed what they were. We never actually even figured out for ourselves what they were. We just know that we're doing what we think we should be doing and that we should be getting some sort of reward that we're not getting. So many relationships are stuck in that dynamic of I'm doing all these things for you and building up resentment and you're doing all these things for me and building up resentment. And that's not even what I wanted. That's not even what I wanted. And neither of us are getting what we want. And both of us are feeling resentful. And both of us are trying to be what we think the other person wants us to be, even though that was never explicitly stated. Or even if it was, right? We can even get into situations where one of the partners or some of the people say, okay, well, I need this from you. And you need to be this for me to love you. And we accept that. Instead of like, no, like that is not the point of a relationship. The point of a relationship is not for it to be this transactional thing. I do this for you, you do this for me, and that's the point of it. Right? Like, we don't want to be in that kind of dynamic. We want to be in the kind of dynamic where we can say, like, I know that even if you go away, I would be able to figure out getting my needs met in some other way. Right? That I can acknowledge. So for instance, like as an example, I can acknowledge that my husband absolutely meets needs for me that I don't meet on my own. Right? Like I said at the beginning of this video, he makes enough money that I can charge very little for what I do. I can do things for free. I can do my coaching work on a sliding scale. And he provides me with that. If I didn't have that, I would not be able to do this work the way that I can do this work, the way that I'm doing it right now, which is the way that I want to do it. So I do, on some level, need him for that. But I also know that if something were to happen between us, that I could figure something else out. Right? I am depending on him for this. And at the same time, I know that he's not the only source for that. You see? So it's not to say that we get to a place where we never depend on someone else to do stuff for us. We are all going to depend on others. We are all going to be in relationships where they really do provide something for us that we are not providing for ourselves. And that is not unhealthy. That's normal. That's to be expected. We are never going to be islands who are completely independent. We are always going to be dependent on community to some level. It's just understanding that if one person pulls out or if one, that's not it. That they are not the one source. That we don't feel like if this person pulls away, I have no other option. That's what being able to identify our own needs and our own wants does for us. It helps us to become clear on what it is we're depending on them for. And it helps us to be clear of, instead of being like, I just know that I need you because if you go away, this whole safety thing goes away. And to say, I am very aware of what it is I'm depending on you for. And I know that if you go away, I could figure something else out. Because I'm aware of what this dynamic is. And I'm aware, right, that we're consensually in this dynamic. Of you do this for me, and I do these things for you. And we know that we depend on each other in that way. And that's part of what builds intimacy. That's part of what builds a healthy bond, is the ways we depend on each other and the ways that we let each other meet our needs in very intimate ways. Right? Like we want our friends to be people we know we can go to and talk to in ways that we can't talk to other people. That's a healthy thing. We want that. But at the same time, again, we want to understand that we don't need it to the degree that if we feel like if our friend goes away, there's no other option. we can't be there for ourselves, we can't resource ourselves, we can't figure anything else out. Both and. The more we learn to identify our own needs, the more we are able to meet our own needs where we are able to, which is a very powerful feeling and something that is very healthy as an adult to be able to do. The more we are able to healthfully ask in a consensual way for the people we're in a relationship with to meet our needs, instead of demanding that they meet them or feeling like we can't get our needs met and we can't be safe if they don't. And the more we are going to be able to, again, exit out of unhealthy relationship dynamics where we're codependent and we're just trying to be what they want us to be in the hopes that this will lead to them understanding us and meeting our needs, and all this uncommunicated desire and uncommunicated kind of needs and wants, and why I'm doing this and why you're doing that, and what the purpose of all of this is, and what feels good for me and what feels good for you. We're able to be aware of it. We're able to ask for it. We're able to have that healthy, is this something you're able to do? Is this something you're willing to do? And then we are able to have healthy dependence. Because there are always going to be areas where we do depend on others, where we are counting on others. And we know that people are going to let us down. We know that they're not always going to be able to. And we know we can be okay. We know we can resource ourselves so that we can depend on others in that healthy way without feeling like if they can't do it, our whole world falls apart. Because like I say, part of healthy intimacy is that we are going to depend on each other in some ways, sometimes. That's a healthy thing. So long as it's not, I depend on you for this, and if you pull out, that's it, right? And we don't want to be in a situation where we literally feel like the rejection of others is the worst thing that could ever happen to us. Because rejection of others is inevitable. Not being seen, not being heard, not being approved of by others is an inevitable part of being alive. And when we are existing in a state where we feel like that is the end of the world, where we feel like the worst pain that could happen to us is not being seen, loved, and validated by others, we are in an incredibly painful situation where we are going to continually override and abdicate our own wants, needs, and authenticity in order to be and do what others are approving of. We are going to have more and more of that feeling, like it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, where we have less and less capacity to slow down, to take the time to get to know ourselves, to be honest with ourselves, to be able to express who we really are, what we really want, what we're really experiencing. All of these things that are vital for us to feel good as human beings, that are vital for us to have healthy relationships and support, that are vital for us to get our needs met. It's for us to understand ourselves, for us to be able to resource ourselves. The more we are not going to be able to do that, because we are going to be more and more and more focused on just what do I need to do and what do I need to be so that others will approve of me, so that I won't lose the love of others around me. And we will lose ourselves more and more and more and more and more. And we will become more and more and more and more the people who are just doing and being whatever we think we need to do so that others will love us and approve of us, which will continue to make us feel dependent and like we need these other people, and like we can't be ourselves, and we can't be authentic, and we can't ever be rejected. Because again, we're focusing so much on being what other people want us to be that we're not learning how to resource ourselves. We're not learning who we really are. we're not learning those adult skills of autonomy and independence, the healthy levels of autonomy and independence that we need to feel secure in life, which makes us more dependent and more abandoning of ourselves, and over and over again until we eventually get to this place where we just feel like if we're lost, where we feel completely lost, because if we're not loved and accepted and approved of by others, there's nothing. I can't meet my own needs. I'm not safe. I'm not going to be okay. That is a dangerous cycle to be in. When we are fully convinced that if other people don't love us, we can't be okay, we have set ourselves up to never be okay. Because the reality is, no one is ever going to be able to be perfectly loving and there for us all the time. No one, however much they actually love us, however much they want to give us what we want, however much they approve of us, or whatever it is ever going to be able to make us feel safe. Because nobody's love is ever going to be perfect. Nobody's love is ever going to be infallible. Nobody's external provision is ever going to be enough when we don't have that internal source as well. When we don't have the ability to be who we really are, whether people like it or not. When we don't feel like even if other people reject us or don't understand us or don't love us, we can be okay. We are always going to feel insecure. We are always going to then become the kind of people who are just doing and being whatever we think the people around us want us to do and be. And that's not fair to them, right? That is not fair to the people we're in relationship with, because then they're just a tool we're using, right? We're not actually able to be in a healthy dynamic with those people who are in our lives, who are trying to love us. Because all we see them as is a source. And am I living up to your expectation or not? They can then not be in a real relationship with you. They cannot really actually receive love or a real validation from you, because you are just so focused on trying to make them feel happy that you can't see them as a person. And then again, it means that you are going to feel continually insecure. Because every little bit of them not being able to meet your need or not loving you or maybe being upset with you for a period of time is going to make you feel like your world is going to fall apart. Which is going to make you feel like you need to abandon yourself even more to figure out what they want. You see? And then the cycle continues and continues and continues. We need to be able to understand that it's okay to be rejected and misunderstood and invalidated by other people. Because we have to be able to do that in order to live a healthy life. Because no one's love is ever going to be perfect. No one is ever going to be able to meet all of our needs for us. No one is ever going to be a secure enough attachment that we feel completely secure. No one is ever going to be able to validate us and love us enough that we feel safe and secure if we don't have an inner resource as well. It's not possible. If we are not able to have an inner resource, our relationships are going to be unhealthy. We are not going to be able to be authentic, and we are not going to be able to meet their needs and to see them and to be in a real dynamic with them as another human and not just a thing we're trying to manipulate unconsciously to meet our needs. It is so vital that if we want to feel secure in this life, to the degree that we can, that we don't feel like if other people disapprove of us, that's it. We're done. We can't be okay. Like if we are not being seen and loved and validated by someone outside of ourselves, there's no one home. There's nothing there. There's no one else. We want to be able to develop this so that we can actually be in healthy relationship dynamics. And again, right, like I said earlier, we want to be able to love ourselves enough and to feel like we can resource and support ourselves enough. And I understand that this is not always possible and practical. So to the degree that we can, that we know that we can be okay without someone, that we know that we can find other ways, that we know that we could lose someone's love or lose the connection to somebody and figure it out. If we don't have that, we are going to put up with a lot more abuse, shitty dynamics, not expressing ourselves, not putting up boundaries, not doing the things that would be healthy for us to do because we're so afraid of losing the connection. When we can be okay on our own, we are going to have a much easier time establishing healthy dynamics because we know that if we lose the love or we lose the connection, it's not the end of the world. And when we feel like it is the end of the world, we are going to put up with things that are not ideal, that we shouldn't be putting up with. Okay? So this is why learning to be on your own side, learning to identify your own needs, learning to meet your needs where you can, learning to be able to ask for what you actually want and what you actually need instead of this whole run around of how do I make you love me so that you'll figure it out. Learning to be the kind of person that when you're alone with yourself, there's someone there. You know how to validate yourself. You know how to process emotions. The healthier you're going to be in your relationship dynamics. Okay, I got a question. One thing I'm confused about is the catch-22 of when I asked for a need to be met by my partner, it was met with projection and I'm selfish for my request. But then if I leave the relationship in order to have that need met by someone else, I'm choosing materialism over love relationship when I'm in reality, both, in my opinion, go hand in hand. So it seems like you figured it out. Right? Like I think you actually do know the answer to that question. That person was mischaracterizing leaving as being choosing materialism when really you're leaving the relationship because to you what makes you feel comfortable and secure was not being met. And it's okay, right? So it's okay if, like, in this relationship, it kind of sounds like you're saying like you wanted some financial support. It's okay for one partner to say, the thing that I want or that I need in a relationship is to feel like we are a team and we put our finances together. And for another partner to say, I want to keep our finances separate. That's just a difference in value. That's a difference in values. And neither one is right and neither one is wrong. It's that we want to be able to say, okay, well, that's my value. This is your value. They are incompatible values, and that's okay. Neither one of us is right and neither of us is wrong. It's just we don't have the same values, so we don't work together. And that's okay. That's part of a healthy relationship dynamic, is being able to identify, this is what I want and what I need and what I feel comfortable with. And if that is not okay with and comfortable for you, that's okay. It just might mean we have to shift some things in the relationship to see if we can make it work where both of us are happy and comfortable, or we just validate that we have different values and that's okay, and we go find someone who shares that same value. Right? Like me and my husband share finances. That's a value that we share together. If we were in a situation where he didn't feel that way, I wouldn't necessarily try to convince him to do that. Nor would I feel comfortable trying to force myself to not do that. I would just say, okay, we have different values, so we're not compatible, and that's okay. Do you see what I'm saying? Sometimes it's just a difference in value. And that's part of being a healthy adult who can have a healthy relationship. Are our values matching enough that we are compatible in this way? Is there a compromise that can be made that it makes us both feel good even with our different values? Or do we just have to accept that we have different values and go find someone who matches our values? Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Does that feel practical and reasonable? Right? That's part of the self-love path, is understanding that we are all unique individuals and being able to accept that you have the values and the needs and the wants that you have without it being the thing that you feel guilty about, or a thing you feel like you have to have shame about, or that you have to change so that other people will accept you and approve. But you can just walk in and just say, these are my values, these are the things that are important to me. And it's totally cool if you don't share those. But I know that this is what I need to feel good in a relationship. And if you can't do that, that's okay. It just means, again, we might not be able to be together. You see? Learning to know what you want and what you need means you can be upfront about that. And you can say, are we compatible with our values? Okay? That's why this work is so important. It's about being able to identify what are our non-negotiables, what are our negotiables, what's important to us, what isn't. And then being able to say, I'm not going to stay in a relationship where we have mismatched values and try to force them to value what they don't value. And I'm not going to try and force myself to not value what I do. We can just accept we have different values, and that's okay. All right? Okay. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this was helpful. Thank you to everyone who supports the Mystery School. Thank you to everyone who works with me one-on-one. You are the reason I can do this work. Like and comment for 100% off making Marcus feel good about himself, for being the sponsor of this video and every other video. And I will see you next week.